Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Jay Dobyns. You get to Arizona, right? What's the first dealings with your investigation with the motorcycle club? Like, so you have to portray as a solo angel, right? From Tijuana or something like that.
Yeah, well, it was like it's baby steps, man. For anybody who's not familiar with that world, um, it's not like you walk up to a Hell's Angels clubhouse and knock on the door and say, "Hey, man, you know what? I'm Jaybird, man. You have an application? I'd like to join." It doesn't work that way, right? It's a slow process, and so you have to. It's really no different than any other element of life. Is that you have to build relationships. You have to like build friendships, and it starts small. So it's like that relationship starts remote as an acquaintance, and then you build a friendship, and then in some cases you build trust. You're trying to trust, and then through from the acquaintance to the friend to now a trusted friend, then you start building loyalty, and in some cases you even build love. Um,
Yeah,
and
like
so
because you're around these people, they become your friends, right? You're like with
you
them
know
every
there's
day.
There's people I worked on that were targets of not just the Hell's Angels investigation, other investigations I worked on that like I actually enjoyed their company. I enjoyed their presence. Um, there were people who were like actually fun to be around, fun to hang out with. And so in an undercover role, when you're spending an extended amount of time with people, you're not just every day is not in the middle of some criminal event. Like you're hanging out with them, and
Did
you're
you
like
feel
you
bad
eat
at
with
one
them.
point? At
Yeah,
any
man,
point,
like
did
you eat with them. You hold their babies. I slept at their houses. They slept at my house. There was a time in the Hells Angels investigation, I was alone at my undercover house. It was Thanksgiving. The phone rings. It's like, "Hey, Jay Bird, what are you doing for Thanksgiving?" I'm like, "Man, I'm just sitting here chilling out, man, with a TV dinner, man." And they're like, "Dude, ain't gonna happen. You need to come over with me and hang out with my family and spend time with us, right?" When things like that happen, that's the human side. You never in an undercover role, you can never get rid of the human factor. It's always there. So do you build affection for people? Do you build um, like a love for people, like on a human element? Yeah, you do. Um, and then ultimately, like the information that you have gathered, the intelligence you have gathered, the facts, the evidence is put forward. And so your interactions with those people are going to lead potentially to their arrest, potentially to their trial, potentially to their conviction or incarceration. Man, I never felt good about that. I never set out to say, "Man, I'm going to ruin this dude's life. I'm going to crash his world." That was never my objective. My job was to go out and gather information, gather facts, gather evidence, then take that information and deliver it out to case agents or prosecutors, ultimately to judges and juries. Like I don't make the judgment on people. Um, so there are people um, that were arrested or convicted behind the work I did that like I don't feel good about that. I'm not happy about that. I had a job to do. I went and did it the best I could, but like I don't get any satisfaction out of saying, "Hey man, I locked that dude up." Like that was never my objective. My objective was to gather information and facts and evidence.
and you did that, right? I mean, but so with the investigation, was there any times during the investigation that you felt like in fear for your life? Like, damn, I'm caught. Like they're gonna catch me. I
Well, when you spend time with dangerous people over an extended period of time, um, a lot of these dudes might not necessarily be book smart. You know, they might not be Rhodes scholars, but they are PhDs on the street. They have PhDs in violence and intimidation, and so you're living a lie, and you're telling these people a lie about yourself. You're living this false persona, right? And so these cats are smart. The lie you told them 2 years ago, you better be ready to live up to that lie real time today because they're not going to forget. So every time you tell a story, every time you tell something or reference something about yourself that's fictitious, it's going into their catalog, man. It's going into their hard drive, and they're going to access that at some point and challenge you on it.
And
So,
say, hey, remember that? Do you remember when you said that? Right?
well, you're always at risk of getting blown up. You're always at risk of trick bagging yourself if you're not good at what you do and not like on point every minute, every second of every day.
Did you ever get caught in a lie with
Yeah,
them?
yeah. I got, I had my cover challenge. Um, I've been in situations where I've like had a gun held to my head and said like, man, dude, we ain't buying it. We ain't buying your bullshit anymore, man. You need to explain this. Well, you know what? You better be able to explain it. I
Can you
always felt like when there's a gun to my head and I'm being challenged, as long as I'm talking, as long as I'm communicating, I have a chance, right? Because when you're not talking, that means you've either been shot or you've been gagged.
so can you explain the situation where they took your partner that you were with, made him die, right? They put blood on a patch, a Mongol's patch or something, and some cow brain or something, and they took pictures and you took the cut back to him. Can you explain like what that investigation was like, that little part of the investigation?
Sure, it was at the very end of the infiltration. I was trying to like push myself over the top with these guys, and at the very start of my interaction with the Hell's Angels, I asked the simple question, and it was asked to elicit conversation, to gather information, but it was also asked for my own guidance. I said, what am I supposed to do if I cross paths with a Mongol? I'm with you guys, I'm associated with you guys, I'm riding with you guys. I cross paths with the Mongol. What are your instructions to me as to how to handle that? There was no hesitation. The president of my charter, which was the Skull Valley Charter in Arizona, he said, it's your job to kill him. Okay, so I took that information and I put that in my back pocket for 2 years, right? Sitting on it, like knowing that was the attitude.
But you're the probate at this time, right?
Yeah.
So are you
So,
wearing a bottom rocker?
yeah.
You're running around with a bottom rocker on. Wow,
So,
man.
so like at the end, trying to push this thing over the top, I created a fictitious story and went back to these same guys and said, hey, there's a Mongol in Mexico. I've got contacts down there. He's talking shit. He's talking about running tweak up, into Arizona, right into our backyard. There's nothing we can do about it. The Mongols kicked our ass in Laughlin. Like all those inflammatory statements that would piss them off, right?
Yeah.
I said, let me prove myself, man. I want to go down to Mexico and smoke this dude. Um, there was no hesitation in that. They gave me the gun to do it. They gave me the instructions on how to do it. So we go, take a Mongol, dig a shallow grave out in the desert, um, assassinate the dude, um, cut his vest off, take it back to the Hell's Angels, said, man, you know what? If you thought I was bullshitting, now you know I wasn't. Here's the pictures. So the Mongol's got his head blown apart, and there's blood in the dirt, and there's brains on the ground. Brought the bloody Mongol vest back to him, delivered all this real time like hands-on, that they could touch and see and feel and smell evidence of this murder. What we didn't tell them, obviously, and the lie in it, was that it was all fabricated.
Yeah.
The guy that we killed was a member of our task force. We didn't really kill him. We used Hollywood techniques to dress him up and make him look like he was dead, make him look like he'd been headshot,
Yeah.
and beaten and buried. And we did a good enough job of it to sell murderers that we had committed a murder.
Was that the only plan you guys had to infiltrate them, to get in, like a step in, or did you have any other plans besides that plan?
Well, for 2 years, that was a very extreme example, but for 2 years, I mean, I did that for 2 years in these guys' presence. I set up false, fictitious hoaxes, street theaters for them to witness for 2 years. So they saw me in gun deals, doing gun transactions. They saw me in drug deals. They saw me involved in beatings. They saw me involved in extortions and intimidations. What they didn't know is that they were all like orchestrated behind the scenes, where the people that I was working on in their presence were actually cops playing a role.
That's
Like
crazy.
I did debt collections. I brought Hell's Angels with me on debt collections, where I went and stuck up somebody for money. So in their eyes, real time, they just saw Jaybird confront a dude, take his money, take his car, talk shit to him, walk away. In their eyes, man, they were just part of a debt collection. What they
Yeah.
didn't know is that the victim of the debt collection was one of my partners.
So when you're doing gun buys and drug buys and things like that, do you ever feel that the facilitation of the organization that you worked for, that the facilitation of these drug deals or these gun deals were the reason why they were involved with criminal activity?
Well, I think I understand the question. Deception, law enforcement deception, is sanctioned from the lowest levels of law up through the Supreme Court. Cops are allowed to participate in deception. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's like a basis, right? So there's elements of a criminal investigation as an undercover agent that you have to be aware of, which come through experience. One is entrapment, right? That's the most common defense that any defendant attorney is gonna make against an undercover agent. You entrapped my client. You put my client in a situation, and you made it so enticing for him that no reasonable person would have said no.